All right, I know it's June, but I'm getting pretty bored here, so we're going to talk about some fantasy basketball, and I'll have Noah joining me on the show. He has been talking a lot about fantasy basketball over the last month. This is Stuff It, a fantasy basketball podcast. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Find me at Adam King 91. Find Noah at Noah Rubin 22. Noah, it's been a while. I don't know when we did our last show.
Yeah, I was trying to think too. It's been months. Been too long for sure.
Too long for sure. And we'll actually be we're about a month away from actually meeting for the first time. So prepare yourself.
Yeah. I was actually up in a quick story. Met the Menace Podman guys, Scott and Steve, about a few weeks ago, less than a month ago. Because I was up in Michigan for family because my cousin was graduating, and we had talked about that before. And then so I was like, "Hey guys, you guys want to get together?" Was able to meet them, and like I had never thought about it before. Like I know you're tall, but like I didn't know how tall they were. Okay. And Steve is like 6. I don't know exactly, like 6'4" or 6'5" or something like that. And I was like, and he could probably correct me and tell me exactly how tall he is, but he was much taller than I guess I was expecting. And I was like, immediately it threw me off. I was like, I don't even know exactly how high up I need to look when I'm looking for someone new, but I know to look up high for you. So that's good.
Yeah. It sounds like he's probably about my height. I'm about 6'5" So, looking forward to getting over to Summer League. And I know you've been doing all the draft stuff with Matt Lawson and covering everything sort of rookie related, that sort of thing. But, and I mean, we weren't even going to talk about this. Who are you looking forward to seeing at Summer League most? Are there players that you're particularly interested in seeing?
I mean, the people I'm most interested in seeing are the fantasy basketball analysts. I can say that. Okay. But oh my goodness, this draft class has been a lot of fun to dive into. There's a number of players that I'm very excited to see just from the rookie class. I'd say off the top of my head, a few guys that I really like. Maybe I'm a little higher on the consensus. I'm trying to get Tankathon to load up and it's not cooperating, but a few of the guys off the top of my head, obviously getting to see Cooper Flagg would be incredible. And then Drake Powell's a guy who projected to go second round, potentially late first round. He's a guy I'm very high on. Colin Murray Boyles as well from South Carolina, and then Danny Wolf from Michigan. Those are just a few guys, but there's a number of players in this class that I'm very excited about that I think are also going to be really good in fantasy for a while.
Yeah, I've been. I mean, you and Matt, you're obviously the dynasty experts and all the college guys. But I listen in. I try to sort of get as much knowledge out of you guys as I can. And one thing I've noticed this season is when you were breaking down the draft lottery and the projected where they're projected to go and all that sort of thing, it didn't feel like last year where. And I mean, we knew that last year's draft class was not particularly strong. But I remember thinking it almost felt like, not just you, but like analysts in general, was almost trying to find reasons to talk players up. But it was hard. Like you're trying to make these players sound really good and, but this could happen, this could happen. This year just sounds a lot more natural. Like these players, there's good players and they're going to be good. And I think Summer League's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm particularly interested to see the Australians. There's a few Aussies that will hopefully be playing in Summer League this year. Sort of 6 or 7 off the top of my head. I have no idea of exact numbers, but there's a couple who aren't or weren't necessarily won't be drafted or anything like that. But there's a couple of guys that have headed over who have been playing here in the local sort of national league, and one. Will Hickey, who I think is playing for Detroit in the Summer League. Okay. He's interesting. I mean, you'll see him. You'll see all of them. But he's 27, I want to say, and had a huge breakout season this season in the National League here, and played. His team ended up winning the title. He's an interesting player. He's a bit older, but I'm curious to see how he goes over there. But yeah, look, much like you, Cooper Flagg, looking forward to hopefully seeing him. I don't know how many games he'll actually play in Summer League, but hopefully at least one.
I'm sure at least a couple because I don't remember exactly how many did Wemby play when he was a rookie. I know it was at least 2, but it could have been closer to like 5. And I could be making that up entirely, but I don't feel like it was definitely at least 2 for Wemby. So hopefully we'll get to see at least 2 or 3 games out of Cooper Flag. But I don't know if he's just that good. They may not want to play him more than that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping, I said at least 1, but I'm hoping 2 to 3. From memory, Zion played 2 or 3 because that was the last time I was there, 2019. I think he played 2 or 3. So
okay.
But yeah, look, it's just a fun experience. Have you've been to Summer League before, or you haven't been?
I have not. I was just looking it up. Wemby played 2 games in Summer League.
2,
so
okay.
Because there's a bad one and then a good one. No, I haven't been. So I'm excited just for, I don't know, just the environment, just to meet people there, to see everything in person. It'll be very cool.
Yeah, it is. It is very cool. Like, it's just very relaxed and casual, and there's no numbered seating or anything. You just wander in and sit wherever there's a seat. And you're so close, especially not in the Thomas and Mack, in the other court. I can't think what that one's called off the top of my head. But you're so close to the action. It's like you're watching like a social game kind of thing at the local gym, which is really fun. Anyway, we'll let's forget about Summer League and let's look into next season. But before we do, let's quickly remind everyone that BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. You don't need to be reading this ad because you've been reading it so much. Baseball is in full swing, deep into NBA and NHL finals. BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting while the games are being played. While we're talking about the NBA, betting odds, I can't see them over here in Australia on BetOnline, but Pacers took out game 1, which I was very happy about as I just pulled up my Pacers jumper. Very happy, but surely the Thunder are still the favourites.
They are. They're actually pretty heavy favorites in this series, despite Indiana now having home court advantage. The Thunder are favored by 11 for game 2, which I think makes sense. I would be pretty surprised if they didn't take full control of game 2 and just kind of, that's what they did in the Denver series. They lost game 1. It was a close one. And then they blew Denver out in game 2. So it wouldn't shock me if that happened. And then for the series, the Thunder are minus 345. So pretty heavy favorites, which means if you are a believer in the Pacers, you can still get pretty good odds.
Yeah, my brother actually messaged me and asked me, do I have any hope? And I said, not yet. Not yet. It's one game. But look, in saying that, I mean, luck seems to be on their side. So they only need a couple of more lucky games and they can get it. So honestly, I don't really mind. I like the Thunder as a team and how they've built and that sort of thing. So I think it's pretty cool just having 2 smaller market teams in the finals anyway. Dog days of summer, they keep rolling with the largest selection of odds and everything. Updated odds on all the sport, MLB, UFC, boxing, tennis, NFL futures. Do BetOnline, here's a question. I don't know if you'll know the answer to this. Do BetOnline do betting or wagering for WWE?
I'm pulling it up to see if that's available here.
I only asked because I was just watching Money in the Bank, which started about an hour ago, which is the current pay-per-view. I was watching that, as I always do. And, can you bet on that?
I don't think so. I'm not seeing anything here.
It feels risky, like, given that there would be ways if you were
right.
You could actually know who's going to win beforehand, sort of thing. So it would seem a bit dodgy to me if you could bet on it.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I was like, I don't want to say, because I'm not a huge wrestling fan. I was like, WWE is staged. It's right. Like it's okay. So then, I don't see anything on there where you could.
No.
So
okay. That makes sense. Okay. Good to know. In between the games, though, if you don't feel like betting on the games, on the sport, head over to the BetOnline casino with all the Vegas style games, poker, live casino. I think Dan said on his show that there's like was it 50 different types of blackjack? I'm only aware of one. So God, I'd be pretty overwhelmed if I jumped in there. But yeah, head over there, do some online betting. Bet online, the game starts here. Will you be betting in Vegas? Is that a thing? Are you a gambler?
I try and only do it when I'm actually at a casino and try and limit. I'm pretty good about limiting myself, but yes, okay. I do enjoy playing blackjack. It says that there's 25 different versions of blackjack on this website.
Blackjack. That's a lot.
That I'm seeing here, but it's pretty crazy. I guess like all the different boosts and stuff like that. So interesting.
Yeah, maybe.
But,
yeah.
I'll
happily watch you gamble when we're there.
Deal.
And Dan, I think
unless you bring bad luck, in which case you're gonna have to go.
Oh yeah, then I'll leave. And look, that is highly likely as well that I'll bring some bad luck with me. So I'll wander off and do something else while you're doing that.
Deal.
All right, why are we here today? What are we going to talk about? I popped something into the Old Man Squad Discord. I want to say earlier in the week, just asking for suggestions of players that we could talk about looking ahead to next season. Now, obviously, we're still more than 4 months away from the start of the season, so things can change. But I just thought we'd talk about some players that the Discord community wanted us to talk about. So we'll chat about. We got 5, so we'll start with 5 and see how we go. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to start with the best, Dyson Daniels. People know. I think we're fairly transparent with our thoughts and feelings regarding Dyson Daniels. I will say that, and this is probably not news or anything that you see over there, but Dyson's brother Dash Daniels, he's playing in the national comp here this year, mm-hmm. And he's currently playing in the sort of the level below the National League in the lead up to that. So he's playing. So the National League here is called the NBL, and then mm-hmm. the step below that it's called the NBL 1. So he's playing in the NBL 1. And dominating, like playing really well. And he's still only, how old is he? He's not that old. Hang on, let me have a look. Dash Daniels. Age, there we go. He's 17, so he's still quite young. And I'm going to have a look at his stats, actually. Can I have a look at... can I pull up some stats somewhere?
I saw a tweet about him the other day.
Yeah. I'm just seeing if this has got his... so only played 22 minutes in his first game, had 19.6 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 of 6 from 3. From what I've read and from what I've heard, offensively, he's better than Dyson. So he's got a bit more range. Defensively, not quite as good yet. But plays very similar style. So I'll be curious to see if and when he nominates for the draft. Where he sort of fits and where he ends up going. But let's talk about Dyson because he's already here and we know about Dyson. And yeah, he was very good this year. Obviously, ranks are skewed a little bit with steals, like defensive stats, sort of bumping people up and all that sort of stuff. But by all accounts, it was certainly a breakout season for him. Led the league in steals quite comfortably, made all defensive first team. Should he have won Defensive Player of the Year? Well, we're probably the wrong people to be asking that question. But also did win the Most Improved Player. So I guess the question is, what we saw from Dyson this year, is that something he can repeat next season? Can he get better? Is that his best season? He's still very young. Just, I guess, where are you sort of envisaging him for next season? Does he climb the ranks at all? I want to say he finished top 20.
Something like that.
Maybe. Let's have a look. But yeah, I guess so. Where are you seeing his trajectory? Is he still on an upward trajectory, or is this who he is for now?
I would say that 2 things can be true in that. One, I think he could be better next year, and that at the same time the 9 cap value is probably going to drop because like you said, a lot of it was dependent on 3 steals per game, which was just far and away better than everyone else in the league. And now he's, I guess, has this reputation now of being the guy who gets all the steals. And I don't think that's going to change. Like, he's just all of a sudden not going to be as good at that, but teams will take more of an account for him. And then also it's a pretty fluky stat. So he could drop down to 2.3 per game, 2.4 per game, and still lead the league and not have that huge lead over everyone else for steals, and then not look as good in 9-cat leagues. And so I think it was like top 15 even where he ended up finishing. And I think we saw that a few years ago with Jaren Jackson when he had this season where he averaged 3 blocks per game, and then it went down to 1.6 or something like that. And it's like, okay, like Jaren Jackson's still a really good shot blocker, and we know that, but if it's not this outlier stat, then it doesn't look as good in a category league, which is fair. But I still think we can see him make improvements in other areas of his game. He's only been in the league for 3 years. Like, the shot isn't great. We can see slight improvements there. The assists are still good. The rebounds are still good. Maybe we can see the points tick up slightly, but I think mostly we can just hopefully see him continue to improve as a shooter. And so he can improve in that regard, maybe actually be better in general for fantasy basketball because he has more things that he's good at, even though he doesn't have this outlier stat. So he isn't, like, the 9-cat value isn't as pretty.
Yeah, I think I sort of agree. Like, I think it'll be a weird season where his rank isn't as good. Like, he might finish 28th, but he'll be better for fantasy in a weird way because his scoring could go up. The steals come down, yes, but as you said, he could average 2.2 and still lead the league in steals. But if everything else just shifts up a little bit, and I do think the offense sort of improved last season, and I think a stat that doesn't really get talked about, I feel like I've mentioned it somewhere, but his opportunities obviously went way up because he was playing a lot more minutes, he was starting. So points went up, but his field goal percentage actually went up fairly significantly as well. It went up almost, I think, 4%, 4.5% from memory, close to 50. And if he can be a 50% field goal guy, averaging 16 points a game, he gets his assists. With Trae Young there, he's never going to be an elite assists producer, but 5 assists. He's a decent rebounder, 0.7, 0.8 blocks. Yeah, it's a weird situation where I think his rank could be worse, but his impact across the board could improve. So where would you draft him? Like, we did one really early mock and he went, I want to say he went inside the top 20 to one of the Menace Podman guys. I can't remember who took him, but I was going to take him. I think it was a 14-team league that we did, and I was pretty sure I picked one. So I had Wemby, and I was going to get Dyson on the way back around at 28. Would you go into the second round to take him, or hope that he falls into the third round?
I think he's just probably a guy I just don't end up with next season.
That's sad.
It is, because I really like Dyson Daniels, but frankly, like, I mean, the other stat that you just mentioned there briefly with the assists, like, do we see that go up? Like, even if or do we see it go down because Jaylen Johnson's healthy? Because I think also he's a secondary playmaker when Jaylen Johnson's not out there. But if Jaylen Johnson's there, then he's the secondary playmaker. So maybe we see Dyson Daniels' assists stay around the same or be down slightly. So there is room for him to improve. But I think if it's in a specific punt build, like if you're punting points or something like that, then maybe Dyson Daniels fits in a little better, good enough for me to take him in the third round. But I feel like you're basically taking him at his peak if you do that, and you're hoping that he has the outlier steals again. And if he doesn't, I was just looking it up. Do you know where he finished if you were punting steals? And obviously you wouldn't do that and get Dyson Daniels, but if you take out steals, he was 137th on Basketball Monster in 9-cat leagues. So it's like, I think that number specifically could look better next year. And maybe he is a top 100 player in a punt steals build if you just take out that category.
Yep.
But if you don't have it, then clearly if that goes down to 2 steals per game or a steal and a half per game, like, he's still gonna be good, but it's a fluky stat. It's hard to bank on him repeating top 15 value. Yeah.
And I do think, I mean, obviously, yes, still 4 months until the season, but he'll be one of those guys I feel like gets a little bit of hype. We obviously hyped him a lot during this past season, where to the point where I think there will likely be someone in most leagues who will go, I love Dyson Daniels. I've got to get the steals, and they'll reach to get him, and they'll take him at pick 19 or something. And that's why, as you said, you probably won't end up with him. I'm going to, in at least one or two leagues, I will make sure I punt to a point where I can take Dyson in the second round and he's not going to hurt me. So I'll punt all the categories that he's weak at. But generally speaking, yeah, I think third round, is he available? That'll be the question. All right. Player number 2. Let's go with Jaylen Brown next. So certainly some questions regarding what he might be able to do given the injury to Jason Tatum. So Tatum will miss, are we going to say he's going to miss the whole year? He probably doesn't miss the whole season, but he's going to miss a significant portion of it. And depending on where the Celtics are placed, do they still have Drew Holiday? Is Porzingis there's a lot of questions regarding this rotation. So for at least, I don't know, let's say the first 3 to 4 months of the season, Jaylen Brown is going to be option number 1. How good can he be? I've been asked this question as well. Can he be top 20? I don't think he can be top 20. He will definitely be better. Let's just pull up his numbers here. You might already have them. Jaylen.
I do. If you want me to share, I can.
You can share.
From this past season, he was at 22.2 points, 5.8 rebounds, 4.5 assists per game, 1.2 steals. Let's see. Trying to find a good way to. Nope, the site I'm using only has a 10% percentage for threes, but
that's all right. I've got his. I don't have his 3-point percentage, but he was a top 100 player. But again, you never really look at rank when it comes to Jaylen Brown because he has some pretty glaring holes in his game, notably his free throw percentage, which is for some reason just really bad. Not really bad, but it should be better. So, yeah, 22 points, 6 rebounds, 4.5 assists, a steal. That's sort of it. He's okay from the field. He's pretty average from the line. If we go back to his best season, which I think was the 2022-23 season, 26.5 points, 7 rebounds, 3.5 assists, a steal. Again, free throws, pretty average. Field goal percentage was a little bit better. And he was the 47th ranked player that year. I want to say his ADP in this most recent season was he top 40 from memory? Something like that, top 40, top 50 in that range.
I can pull it up. Let's see what it was exactly. On Yahoo. Wait, am I using the wrong thing? Hold on. Sorry. I was looking up his roster percentage, which isn't as helpful. 40.4 on Yahoo, yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So if he was going at around pick 40 last year with a healthy Jason Tatum, how high does he go? Like how high are people going to be on him? Are they going to? He's not going to go first round. I think we can safely say people aren't going to reach into the top 15 to take Jaylen Brown. Would people be comfortable taking him back end of the second round, 20, pick 23, pick 25, 28, in that sort of range? Like, where are you, based on the way the roster sits at the moment, where would you be comfortable taking him?
With the way the roster sits, that's a pretty big question too, because I'm expecting at least a little bit of change.
So am I.
This offseason, but
I don't think that change is going to result in Jaylen Brown moving down the pecking order, though. They'll bring some pieces in, but Jaylen Brown, it'll still be his team. So it'll be more the complementary pieces that are around him, which could impact like assist numbers or something like that. But I think in terms of offense, he's option 1. So, yeah, like top 30, top 25?
I think that's probably where he'll end up going, and I think that's fair. I don't know if he is a player that I would be really interested in getting. We'll see the points increase for sure. He's coming off the best passing season of his career, which is good to see. Hopefully, I mean, that is something that he'll have the ball in his hands even more next year, regardless of what the roster looks like, just without Jason Tatum till, I would say at the earliest, February, maybe like a post All-Star break return, but it all is going to depend on how this team looks and how this team is doing. And it would be not a full workload for a little while for Jason Tatum. So Jaylen Brown's going to be the guy for all of next season.
Yeah.
A ton of points. The rebounds should be fine. I'm not expecting those to jump up. Hopefully he gets back to shooting more threes. He was at 5.7 attempts and 5.9 attempts the last 2 years, but the 3 years before that, he was over 7 attempts per game. So hopefully he can shoot more threes. I think that'll be good for his fantasy value, good for the offense. But the free throw percentage isn't great. I'm not expecting the field goal percentage to improve just because Jason Tatum isn't out there. I think that's going to make shots even harder for Jaylen Brown. But the usage is going to be incredibly high. So I think he's probably a third-round player. May end up being overdrafted because people are going to want to get their hands on the former All-NBA player that's now taking the other All-NBA player out of the equation and is going to have the ball in his hands the whole time. I'm also just, I don't know. I'm not as high on Jaylen Brown as a player as I think some other people are. I think he's very good, but I think some of the hype that he's gotten in recent years has a lot more to do with Boston's success than him as an individual. And I'm not trying to be too negative on him because I do think he's a phenomenal player, but I'm not super convinced that we're going to see him come out and be able to average like 28 points per game just because Jason Tatum's out.
Yeah.
I think it'll improve, but we'll see.
Yeah, look, I don't disagree there. Like, I think he's a really good player, but he's probably not someone I'm going to end up with in a lot of situations because I think he will go a little bit too high for my liking. Certainly in certain builds, he's going to have a little bit more value if you're punting free throw percentage or punting blocks, that sort of thing. But yeah, I think he will go just fractionally too high for me as well. Who do we want to go next? Well, we'll finish off with the brothers last. So let's go with Nikola Jokic. A lot of people wanted us to talk about Nikola Jokic. I don't know why. I guess like some question. I mean, every year we're going to have questions now moving forward about Jokic, and he's getting older. How good can he be? Look, I mean, this, I guess, boils down to, and this will be a question that we're having for the next 4 months, is who goes number one in drafts next season? Is it Jokic? Is it Wemby? Or is it Shea? I think Shea will be in the discussion. I think ultimately it'll come down to Jokic versus Wemby. Who would you go with? I mean, I went with Wemby in our mock draft, which we did quite a while ago. Are you a Jokic man or are you a Wemby man?
I think I'd go Jokic, and I think it could come a little bit down to how you want to build out your team. If you really want to lean into some really good shot blockers and want to build a Wemby team, I think that's a very good strategy, and taking Wemby at number one, I have no problem with. But Jokic is, to me, the best player in the league, the best player in fantasy basketball. I'll just have some of his advanced stats up here, which is pretty crazy. Or excuse me, these aren't even the advanced ones. These are just the normal ones. He's coming off the best scoring and passing season of his career. That's pretty.
Yep.
just to think about what Jokic has been the last few years, and then this past year,
best steal numbers too. I'm fairly certain.
Yeah, pretty insane from what Jokic did. Yeah, so I'm very comfortable taking Jokic here at number one, and it gives you a lot of flexibility with how you want to build your team because he is very good across the board. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Look, and this is why I was a little bit surprised with it that he was a name that was mentioned. Maybe he just won people a lot of leagues, so they wanted us to talk about him to hear his name. Yeah, look, I'm comfortable going either way. As you said, I think Jokic is a little easier to build around if you're going for across the board production or a roto league or something like that. Wemby, a little bit more specialised, but we also haven't seen the best of Wemby, so we don't know what can he get his assist numbers to. The blocks we know very good. Steals will be above average. What does his field goal percentage get to? How good can he be from the free throw line? So still questions there. How healthy is he going to be is another question.
What does that roster look like?
What does the roster look like? Is Giannis there? We don't know. Man, if Giannis goes there and they have Fox, Giannis, Wemby.
What I've been seeing more of recently is Kevin Durant. That's what I've seen the last couple of days from a lot of all over Twitter is that Kevin Durant is open to going to San Antonio. So how does that factor in?
Yeah, exactly. So again, a lot of questions remain regarding a lot of rosters. Probably not Denver's roster though. I think Denver's roster probably stays fairly much like Westbrook. Is he going to leave? I think I read something that he'd been offered ridiculous money to go overseas.
I saw
that. So where is he? Like that's completely going to be his call on money or championships, because he's still good enough that I'm sure if he went over and played in Europe, he would be the best player there, and earning a ridiculous amount of money. So maybe he goes, but yeah, I think for the most part, their roster will remain relatively unchanged. With that said, even if they did make a change, Jokic, he's not going anywhere in terms of where he fits. So I think Jokic is certainly the safer option at this point and does a little bit more in more categories. Wemby, if you're willing to take a little bit of a chance, go with him. But yeah, I don't think as you said, I mean, Jokic is coming off career best numbers in multiple categories, which for a guy that's been the number one player for half a decade is pretty phenomenal. He will start to slow down at some point, but with that said, he doesn't play at a fast pace. Like, it doesn't matter if he slows down. Yeah. He might get better if he slows down. Who knows?
He's 30, so I'm not too concerned, especially like you said with his style of play. Played one season he played 69 games. Every other season he's played at least 70. Played a career high 36.7 minutes per game this past season as well. So they need him on the floor to have any sort of success. So those numbers are going to be like he's just going to be on the floor enough that he has to produce. Yep. And by the way, he's over 40% from beyond the arc now.
Yeah,
just adding that in too.
Just something else. Yeah. Pretty incredible what he's been doing. All right, let's finish up with the Thompson twins. So we had both of these guys were mentioned in Discord as players that the community wanted us to talk about. So let's start with Amen Thompson, Houston version of Thompson. Coming off a good year. I think probably for some people a little bit unexpected. I was relatively high on him coming into the season. I was happy to take him. I feel like I was taking him in sort of the 7th round with a view to sort of, okay, he'll play 25 minutes a game, but he just does enough in those minutes. He certainly did a lot more than I thought he would do. Injuries helped, obviously. The fact that he is just, is he their best player? You could probably have that argument as to whether he's their best player. He's certainly in the discussion, but his role is not going anywhere. Like coming into this past season, there were question marks around, does he start? Does he come off the bench? How many minutes does he play? I think if we project forward in 4 months when the season starts, he's a starter for Houston and he's playing 34 minutes a game. Would you agree with that?
100%. In my opinion, he's their most valuable player, with Alfred Şengün as a close number 2, but I would value Amen Thompson higher. One of the best defenders in the NBA already, both him and his brother are. And there's numbers to back that up with how they, get deflections, get steals, get blocks, but also drop their opponent's field goal percentage when they're the primary defender. There's a number of stats that show it, and you could just watch a game and see, they're really good defensively. Freak athletes, both of them are. But Amen Thompson has been better. He's gotten more of that opportunity. I got him in a couple leagues in like the later rounds, and he was fantastic. And had Jabari Smith not got hurt, would we have been frustrated all season with Amen Thompson sitting on the bench just because he never got the opportunity to start? Maybe. I'm glad, maybe not glad it happened, but glad that there was a positive outcome because of it, even though it kind of does stink for Jabari Smith. The solution would be to trade Dylan Brooks. But either way, Amen Thompson is the guy in Houston, in my opinion, and he's going to be a beast for fantasy basketball. If he gets to be like and this applies for Asar as well, a 30% three-point shooter. Just something where the defense can't sit there and just watch them shoot the ball. They have to at least pretend to give a half closeout.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be over with.
Yeah, I think that's the next natural sort of progression for him is just extending his range. Even, yes, the three-point line, but even just to the mid-range as well.
Yeah.
A lot of his, I mean, I don't have the advanced stats here, but I feel like a lot of his baskets came at the rim. Just with his athleticism and quickness, he's able to get to the rim. If he can just, the further he can move away from the basket, at least as you said, as a threat. So defenses have to care that he's doing it. He's going to help him defensively. He's still, again, you said he's one of the best defenders in the league. Finished last season as the 55th ranked player. Now, a little bit like Dyson Daniels, but also not as much because he's good in certain categories, not very good in others. But he's not like Dyson where he's super elite in one. He's very good in blocks, very good in steals. His field goal percentage, as we said, because he gets to the rim, and he's a very good rebounder as well. So, yeah, I mean, all right. So here's a question for next season. Who would you take first, Dyson Daniels or Amen Thompson?
Pretty easily, Amen Thompson.
Okay. So
again,
second round.
I think I'd have to look at how a board would lay out, but I think if I was choosing between those two, I would choose Amen Thompson first. Just a couple stats I want to throw out based on what you were talking about. A lot of his points did come at the rim. 5.2 rim attempts per game, which was 27th in the league and one of the best marks among guards. 72% at the rim, which is a fantastic percentage. From like this. So this is databaller.com, which I'll show you about after, but it's incredible for advanced stats. It's like data ball and then just R, no ER. If you're a fantasy basketball fan, you have to check it out. It has like short mid-range versus long mid-range. So it probably shows somewhere, but I can't find it like exactly how many feet out that is. But 44.8% from the short mid-range, 34.5% on 0.8 attempts per game from the long mid-range, and then 27.5% from three on 1.3 attempts per game. So basically, all those numbers boiled down means bad jump shooter, good at the rim. And if we can see him be even like a below average shooter from the outside, that just opens things up for him to get to the rim even easier. So that's that whole point. And then for the rebounding, he is one of the best rebounding guards in the league, if not the best rebounding guard in the league. So I would take him above Dyson. Again, I think just going back to the Dyson conversation, I think Jaylen Johnson being healthy could take away some opportunities from Dyson Daniels, which is a slight concern for me. But for Amen Thompson, I think that his role would increase. It's more likely to increase as opposed to Dyson Daniels, who we could see take a role decrease.
So Amen Thompson or Jaylen Johnson? Is that a harder decision for you?
It is a harder decision. I think I would go Jaylen Johnson, but if you're someone that drafts with the mindset of I don't want to take players that get hurt, then I wouldn't blame you for taking Amen Thompson over Jaylen Johnson just because of the injury history, even though it is a number of different things. Like it was ankles, but this past season it was shoulders. It was 2 shoulder injuries. Like this just freak stuff that just happens. But I would prefer Jaylen Johnson in a vacuum.
Yeah, interesting. So yes, look, Amen, I think he's not going to be like last season. He's not going to be someone you can get late in drafts. We're 100% on that. I think he will go. I would say that probably the lowest he goes in drafts is maybe top 30. I think he'll go probably inside the top 30 in most drafts. Not in the first round, second round potentially, but you're gonna have to pay up to get him. But what about Asar Thompson? As you said, they're very similar in the way that they play. Amen has had far more opportunities. His health has been better. Asar had the issues back end of last season, and then flowed through to a reasonable portion of this season. With did he have blood clots? Is that what he had as well?
Yep.
Yeah. So he very sort of disrupted career for him, I suppose, to this point. His role in Detroit is still a little bit up in the air. It's not like Amen where he's solidified himself as a starter, 35 minutes. Asar hasn't got to that point yet. He started a number of games, but he would often play 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Where does he fit in? I think he is certainly a tougher to predict for next season compared to Amen. Amen, yeah, we know what he can do. We know what he's playing, but what do we see for Asar next season based on what we saw this year?
Yeah, it's interesting because if you look at per possession stats and compare Asar to Amen Thompson, Amen has a slight advantage for most things, but Asar is actually able to get a good bit more steals and deflections, which is kind of scary to think about. I think that if Asar Thompson sees the minutes jump that Dyson Daniels saw from last season to this past season, we could see him have that type of fantasy season. I don't know that he will go from, I don't remember exactly how many minutes per game he played this year, but it was in the 20s. And Dyson Daniels went from
22 and a half.
Okay, well, Dyson went from 22 to 34, and we saw what he was able to do. If we see Asar Thompson get to 34 minutes per game, I think that he would be one of the breakouts of the draft, like one of the steals of the draft. But you have to think about, will Detroit want to give him 34 minutes per game? Because he has more offensive limitations in the sense that Dyson Daniels is not a great shooter. But Asar Thompson and like both Thompson twins right now are like just non-shooters, frankly.
Yeah.
And they can be a willing shooter at times, like a wide open corner shot, sure. But they're not actively, like they're not shooters, which is fine. But you question, like, okay, could Asar Thompson get to 34 minutes per game if at times him being a shooting liability could prevent him from being on the floor? So I think he's worth a late round swing. I don't know exactly how the board will shake out to where he would go. I don't know if he goes in like the 7th or 8th round range, kind of like Amen did last year. But I think if he gets the minutes, he definitely has all the skills to be as impactful, or maybe close to as impactful as Amen Thompson.
Yeah, I think, look, fair. I think he's just that uncertainty around minutes. But even if he can get to, as I said, he was 22 and a half this year. If he can get to 26, then my mindset would be a little bit like it was with Amen this year, in that I think he only needs 26 minutes to be a top 100 player because he can do enough. But if we simply, and it's never as simple as this, but if we extrapolate what he did last year in 22 minutes, add 50%, brings him up to 33 minutes. His numbers look very similar to Amen. He would go to 15 points. He would go to 7.5 rebounds, 3 assists, 3.5 assists, 2.2, 2.3 steals, a block, 54%. Free throws are bad, but that, I mean, anywhere close to that, as we saw with Amen this year, that puts him up in the top 60, top 50 range. Now, does he get to 33 minutes? I'm pretty skeptical, just given the fact that Detroit have a really good young roster. I guess the transition there for them is moving off of Tobias Harris a little bit and giving Amen a bit more responsibility. But as you said, offense-wise, Tobias Harris is still a much better option. So, there's question marks there, but I do think Asar will be someone that's drafted top 100 range. I think if you can get him there, that's relatively safe. Certainly if you're punting points, punting threes, he gets a bump. Not everyone does that, but some people will. So he will likely, in head-to-head leagues, I think he'll probably go inside the top 100 in most leagues. But, if he might fall a little bit. But I'm hoping for a good season for him, and I think that just the trajectory of Detroit helps because they're a good team now. They're a winning basketball team with a good coach, good players. So that helps him. despite the fact that it means he probably doesn't play 35 minutes a night. I think at least he's a key piece of what they're trying to do. So he will play a significant role.
For sure.
And
then
unsurprising.
Jaden Ivey as well. If I can just add that in. Jaden Ivey
Yeah.
coming back as well could impact his spot in the rotation too. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah, we sort of forget about Ivey, and he was having a pretty good year before he went down. So yeah, be interesting to see where he fits in there as well. Unsurprisingly, we had no issues talking for 45 minutes about 5 players. It's never an issue talking about basketball. What's coming up on Young Man Squad?
So Monday through Friday episodes. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, the only 2 teams I haven't talked about yet are Indiana and OKC. So we're just going to be talking about the draft until the finals are over. I've got a couple guests booked over the next few weeks. I'm going to try and get some more, but whether I have guests or not, we'll just be talking about the draft, getting ready for that. It's a really fun time.
And when is the draft? I know it's sort of late June.
It's June 25th and 26th. I believe it's 8 p.m. Eastern start for both of those. And then because it'll be round 1 on the 25th and round 2 on the 26th, which I'm sure will end up being like the 26th and 27th for you or whatever it is.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's I mean, probably no shocks when the number 1 pick is announced, but beyond that, a few question marks. So yeah, looking forward to the draft, and then looking forward to jet setting over, meeting up with you and Dan and whoever else ends up going. Dan Titus will be there. Dan Titus will be there. Matty G will be there. I'm not sure who else. Josh will be there. He's always there. So should be a good trip in about a month. I'll probably squeeze in a show, maybe 2 shows. There's obviously not a lot to talk about, but we'll find some more content. I'll probably get you back on the show just because why not? But that'll do. Anything else you need to let people? Where do they find you? People who haven't found your new show yet, how do they find that?
Yeah, if you're watching this one, it's pretty easy to click right over. It'll be on the same YouTube channel, just to find under the Young Man Squad playlist. And then if you just want to look it up on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, just search up Young Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. It'll pull up there. And then I know you mentioned it earlier, but you can follow me on Twitter at NoUrban22. Same thing on Blue Sky. And I'm halfway average about posting my content. I used to be much better about it, but Dan is also very good about posting my shows, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, we're all grateful for what Dan does. Helps us out. All right, that will do for today's show. I'm Adam King. He is Noah Rubin. You've been listening to Stuff It, a fantasy basketball podcast. We are done.